I will introduce Maria. Maria Tello is a board member of the Society of Hispanic Historical and Ancestral Research. She has over 45 years of experience with genealogical research. Previously employed at Pro Genealogists, she assisted in researching for the show, Who Do You Think You Are? She is accredited for research in Mexico and has expertise in researching other Spanish-speaking countries, and we're excited to have her share some of her knowledge with us tonight. Maria, I pass it on to you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Well, it's a pleasure to be here and to join you. I'm hoping I bring something to you that you'll be able to use in your genealogical research, and maybe no matter where your research area is, you should be able to use the very same principles that I will be talking about. So I'm going to be touching on all areas of Spanish language research, except for the Philippines, which does have Hispanic ancestry. However, the principles I am going to be talking about can be used in the Philippine research as well. So here we go. Oops. We're going to start at home. What you want to do is talk to the oldest people in your family and your parents, and find them, your aunts, your great aunts, your uncles. Now, these are people that remember things, and you want to ask them some questions. You want to write this down, or better yet, record them. Who do you remember? What do you remember? What was the place where you lived? What was that like? What was it like to live somewhere? And what happened? What was important or important to you? Was there a war? Did it affect you? So by asking these particular questions, I would have never known that my father was, when I asked him about World War II, he said, yeah, I was in World War II, because he never talked about it. Well, he said, well, I was in the OSS, which is the pre-runner to the CIA. That's why he didn't talk about it. So I learned a lot from his stories and what he talked about. And he didn't talk much, but the ones he did tell me about were really interesting. So now that's put me on the track to go to the Freedom of Information Act and see if I can find some documents related to his history in the OSS. So ask questions, and here I am 45 years after I started this, now going for a FOIA. So always ask questions. You're never going to believe what you find. I would have thought my dad would have said something sooner. So I hope you take that advice. You'll be amazed at what you find. All right, now you want to look at all the information that's available. And these are mostly on paper. Some families have Bibles, documents, funeral cards, obituaries, military records, discharge, even enlistment records. Some of these records are also, if they're pre-Vietnam, can be found on a website called Fold 3. But you would try the free websites first, which is Family Search. Ancestry, if you have a subscription to Ancestry, or you can go to a library and use the Ancestry, and you can download some military records, marriage certificates, birth certificates, and newspaper clippings. So you can actually just go to Google and put that person's name in. I'm gonna say if that person's name is John Johnson, you put a year, like 1945. That may be the year he was born. And that might kind of cull out some of the millions of John Johnsons that there are. So look at everything, and the most important thing about these documents is to read them. And I'm going to go over that over and over, because you may read a document and not fully understand that there's a clue in there that you didn't know. And I was working on a line in Utah and pulled up a death record. And I told this person who I was doing the research for that do you realize that the tending doctor who signed this death certificate was the decedent's son-in-law? So those are interesting things that it's a good clue, and it's an ironic kind of find. All right, so now we're going to grab everything we can find. Just say, yeah, I'll take that box of stuff, those clippings that you've been holding, and pour through them. Get started. The first thing we're going to do is try to distill all this information so that it makes sense. And what professional genealogists do, this is not what we do. Okay, this is one of the things we do, however. This is a pedigree chart. So by looking at a family Bible, you may see where there's names of people and the children, and you can kind of do a family tree. And this is a pedigree chart, which is a family tree of sorts. So you can see that the first person is this fella named Jose Anastasio Tello Medina. And then his father is Silverio Tello Salazar, and that's right here. And Silverio's father is Benito. And Silverio's mother is Catarina Salazar. But you see, the other thing is that there's a whole lot of blank places here. All we have are the names for these folks. But for Jose, we've got everything. We've got where he was born, where he was married, where he got married, and where he died. So that's a great starting point to find something on his father's line or his mother's line. So, and this, by the way, is his mother, Maria Miquela Medina Niño. And I have to say that I actually knew this person. She was about 109 when I met her. And she was in deep dementia, but it was pretty neat to see her. She was an Indian lady. Okay, next slide. We've got this little chart that we took from all the records that we found and kind of cobbled this together and found that there's information that we need. So let's see what we can do next. Okay, we want to answer these questions. The birth and birthplace, the baptism or christening place, the marriage and the death place. And those are the basic bare facts that we want to find. Everything else in between is just gravy. But we're going to be looking for these things and these documents. So let's see. Now we're going to research, we're going to set a research goal. As you saw that there were tons of blank spaces, and we have 4 lines because everybody's got 4 grandparents, but it's best to just stick to researching 1 line. I know some researchers will divide the year into quarters and do 1 quarter per grandparent, which is kind of a nice way of doing it. It keeps you from just sinking down a hole and only researching 1 line. But we want to stick to 1 line at a time. Here's the research process. We're going to identify what we know about every person, or that one person who we are going to be searching. We want to know, we want to define and know what it is we are searching for. We're going to decide what record we're going to look for, and then we're going to find it and we're going to review it carefully. We're going to read it, and then we're going to record those findings in our research journals. After we've done that, we're going to evaluate, where do we go next? What do we need next? So let's see, next is 1 person. This all goes, so we have to, we don't know what we don't know about this person, and what information do I have to identify the correct person? Do we have an era? Do we have a time? Do we have a location? How are we going to make sure that we don't, if we're looking for Jose Gomez, it could be that he's in the same town as 4 other Gomez's. and Jose is a fairly common name. So we have to know we've got the right one. And we're going to put this all in our research log. And this is the pedigree chart again. And what we're going to do in this today is to look for a marriage record for Benito Tello. And the reason is because actually we could look for the marriage record for Silverio, but I'd like to know more about Benito. And I know he got married to Catarina Salazar. That's all I really know, except that at one point they were married and they had a child, and his name is Silverio, and he was born in 1874 in a place called Mier y Noriega, Nuevo León, Mexico. So we know where they lived. And they lived there at least in 1874. So we also can presume that they probably got married before 1874. So now we know a time, and we know approximate place. We know the names of the couple and the names of a child. So here's my research log. This is what we know, and this is how I recorded it. So Benito was the father of Silverio Tello. Benito was married to Catarina. Silverio was born in Mier y Noriega, and his grandson Anastasio was born in 1895 in Guadalcazar, San Luis Potosí. Anastasio was married and he died in Tampico, Tamaulipas, Mexico. That's a lot of locations, a lot of space. But we kind of have an idea that if any of these names crop up on a record with Benito, we're pretty sure we got the right guy. And that's how we're gonna identify the correct ancestor. So research logs are important. I would have probably spent 5 years less time chasing a tail if I'd gotten used to using a research log, because I probably looked at the same film 5 or 6 times. And if I'd logged my findings, if I'd logged what I'd known in a situation like this, then it would have really helped. Also, you may put your research down for maybe a month, a week, couple months, maybe sometimes a couple years. Now, if I pick this up, I know what I know without having to go through all the documents. I know what I should be looking at and where. So this is an important step for you to do, and an important habit. So off we go. So what's available? What are the records that we have available? Now we're looking in Mexico, but this could be anywhere in the Spanish-speaking world. So we want to look at civil registration records and Catholic Church records. But we want to make sure the era that we're looking at is within the civil registration times. The Catholic Church records, though, they go back to the beginning of the Catholic Church. So let's say 1200, 1100, but they're not going to go that far back in Mexico or in Peru, or they will in Spain or in Italy. But we know the Catholic Church records are pretty endless for our purposes, but the civil registration records have a start time. And let's see. And here it is. So in Mexico, civil registration started in 1857. Puerto Rico was 1885. Spain, it was 1869. So for Spain, even though it says 1869, not everybody got on board with this until about 1978. In Mexico, some places didn't even start a civil registration until the 1860s. So even though this is when legally they were supposed to start, they didn't always really get it together. There's Argentina for 1881. So these records are important. They are government records, and they will record different things than the Catholic Church records. So let's see. Oops. Okay, so this is a record finder, and I'll show you where to find this later. But if I'm going to look for somebody and I want to find their marriage record, which is what I said I wanted, there it is, marriage information and civil registration. So that's they're suggesting this particular table suggests that I look at the civil registration first and then go to church records. So as you can see, you want to find a parent, civil registration first. So these are just guides to help you get through and to find that particular person and what your strategy should be. Okay, so we're going to go look at civil registration. And these are the types of records they hold: birth registration records, marriage records, and death records. Pretty much it for civil registration. And here is what they hold. The birth registration, well, you'll have the name and gender of the child, name of the parents, and sometimes for the parents, there may only be one. And I've run into some that say none. They say padres desconocidos, parents who are unknown. And the one parent is usually a child born out of wedlock. So that is a situation that comes up, and it makes it very difficult to carry on. But this is what we record. We record what we find, and we read the entire record. So the occupation of the father is usually listed, whether the child is legitimate or natural, and the ages of the parents, and sometimes the grandparents are on there. So off to, let's see, the next one is a civil marriage record. Name of proposed spouses, the ages of individuals, the occupants, the marital status. Is this a widower or is this a person who's single? And what's very interesting is sometimes if it's a widower, they will ask for the name of the wife that died or the husband that died, when they died, where they're buried. You'll find so much about the former spouses that it's pretty amazing. The names of the parents and their birthplaces. So they actually have to bring in marriage information papers so that they can show that they can get married, and that they have witnesses, that they just fill out a form, a huge form, and then they seek approval for a civil marriage. Now, just because you get married civilly doesn't mean you got married in the church. So sometimes people just get married civilly, and then when they have a baby and they register that baby is legitimate. But if they go to the church does not recognize the civil marriage, and that baby is going to be considered illegitimate. So it's kind of an eye-opening thing. It doesn't happen too often, but I've seen it happen. So civil marriage records, then civil death records. These are pretty good. They're very good records. They're especially in the 1940s and on up. They're actually in very nice books. So they'll give the place of death, the cause of death, birthplace, marital status, the same kind of thing, and the place of burial. They'll also notate if there's a will, or if there'll be witnesses as well. And those witnesses and the information given may be given by a child or a spouse. And so you want to note that. You want to put this all in your research log. You want to download that civil death record. All the original documents you come across, you'll want to download and keep. So here we go. Next is the church records. So we're going to find baptisms, marriage information, death, burial, confirmations, jurisdictions such as a parish or a diocese. So baptisms are pretty straightforward. Baptisms will often give you the names of grandparents and whether they're living or dead. The marriage information, marriage records are a class of their own. There's 7 documents that can get kicked into marriage information. So they have to go to the priest, they do a presentation, they ask to be married, then they have to bring witnesses, and these witnesses give written testimonies. The priests will have a discussion in a meeting, and this is all notated. They will have to have banns of marriage in churches, and they have to provide the dates that those bans were announced in church. And if this couple is somewhat related, four levels of consanguinity, which is, first cousin, second cousin, third cousin. If they're a fourth cousin, that all causes an automatic dispensation. So they have to go through a lot to get a dispensation. They have to ask and explain why they need this information or this dispensation, and why they want to get married. And that used to go from the New World to Rome. So it could take a long time to get a dispensation when you think of the old ships. So you find one of these, it's like a gold mine. They often have family trees if they're related. I have one that's 25 pages long, and that's just the dispensation. So marriage information is important, and you have to carefully read that because it'll be quite dense, and it's not easy to read, but well worth reading. There'll be a death and burial, and sometimes they weren't. This is going to be depending on the location. So if they're in an outpost somewhere in the 1800s where there isn't much, they want to bury that person pretty quickly. So that's something to keep in mind. The confirmations, there's not a whole lot of information on a confirmation page. Usually it's just a list of names. So that's not something we really go hunting for, but that is something that is available to find. And the jurisdictions, some of these records are held within the parish. Marriage information, if they go to the level of dispensations, they go to the dioceses. So most of the time you're going to be looking at parish records. Sometimes you want to go to the dioceses. And if you have to be aware of the time frame of the town that you're looking in, because the dioceses boundaries change. For many years, Michoacan was part of the Guadalajara dioceses. And eventually they got big enough, and then they had their own dioceses. I'm sorry, I don't have the dates on that right now, but it can easily be found. So that's the dioceses, and that's a really rewarding search if you get that far into your research. Okay, now we're going to go back to Benito. This is his civil birth registration. And I think I have another. Okay, so this document is from Mier y Noriega, and it says, a los 5 días del mes de julio, on the 5th of July de 1874, 1874. The documents generally have the words all written out for the year. 1,000,000, 800, 870, 70 y 4. Okay, in front of me, Juan del Antonio, civil a los, well, you know what, I'm just gonna skip because this is pretty dense. Un niño que nació, a child who was born in Las Sabanías del día 20 de junio. So this child was born in Las Sabanias. It's the name of a town or a ranch. El día 20th of June, the ultimate month, or so they mean the month before, because this is being registered in July. And he was born at 9 o'clock at night. And they gave him the name of Silverio Tello, hijo legítimo. Okay, so now we know Silverio is a legitimate son of Benito Tello, who is 20 years old and married, and, 20 years old, and Catarina Salazar, and she's 18 years old. So we have the couple having a child, a legitimate child, and they're in Mier y Noriega. And this is 1874. So we don't, let's see. These are people who are being witnesses to they're swearing that this is for real. They're witnesses, they testify. And it gives their name and their age, and it tells where it may even give their occupation. So lots of information on a birth registration record. So here's what it told us. Registered on 5th at 9 p.m., named Silverio. And this is an odd spelling, but it's what they have. Legitimate son, and they reside in Mier y Noriega, Nuevo Leon. And here is that same document underlined. So one of the things out here is to make sure you look at this. And this says he paid 5 reales, which is a monetary. He had to pay that much to register his child. There are times in the margin here, and you find this more in the Catholic Church records, it'll say that when this person got married. So read the margins. There could be information in here. Sometimes it'll say Indio. Sometimes it'll say mulatto or Espanol. Now, in 1830, it was outlawed to do that. So you get into older records and you'll find that notation in there. So if you're looking for your native ancestors in any of these areas, this might be a good place to look in the margin. Okay. Now here's the baptism record for Silverio de la Sabania. And this one actually has more information. It says, here's Silverio. Now he's got a V instead of a B. And he was born, no, he's actually 15 days old. And he's the legitimate son of Benito Tello and Catarina Salazar. And this time her last name starts with an S and not a Z. I find it as a Z every once in a while. So now I've got a little more information. And actually, I didn't really understand what La Sabania was until I got to this document when I was doing my research, because I couldn't quite read it on the civil record. And that just points out how important it is to look at both. Okay, so now we know he's the legitimate son of Benito and Catarina, and abuelos paternos. His paternal grandparents are Idilfonso and Dolores Sustaita. So we're going to presume Idilfonso, his last name must be Tello. And Dolores Sustaita is his wife. Women do not generally take their husband's last names. So that's okay. That gives you more information. And his maternal grandparents were Ireneo Sustaita and Giles, I think it's Muniz, but it's not written correctly. So I just have a question mark about this. I also have another question. This guy's name is Ireneo Sustaita, and her name is Dolores Sustaita. Are these two people related? I kind of gotta wonder. And so, and then these are the godparents, Manuel Ortiz from Navidad, and Navidad Garcia. And those are his godparents. And they've affirmed that they will take they sign in faith. So, okay, there we go. That's everything I talked about. Paternal grandparents. And so I put a question mark here because I'm not sure what that last name is. It's really hard to read. And that happens frequently. So you go after and try to clarify it using other documents, and then you get a better idea. So here we go with the pedigree chart. Here we have Benito. Now we know who his parents are. And now we know who Catarina's parents are. And now we have more questions. Who are these Sustaitas? So we still don't have a marriage date, but we have a lot more information. Off we go. Next slide. We're going to go find more records. And we're going to start at familysearch.org. It's a free website. You just need to register for an account. And it is an amazing maze of things that you will find on there. And you will find original records just like I just showed you. Ancestry.com is a really good place to have to start. It's a pay site, and you can access this at most public libraries. They do have a library edition. Any family history library or center will have them as well. They're throughout the LDS world. Those are free to use. I will say that about 90% of the people who use them are not Mormon, and there's no pressure there. Okay, and here we go with this table again. So we're still trying to find that marriage record for Benito's parents. So we need to look in civil registration. So here we go. This is Family Search. Sorry, and I'm going to plug Benito Tello and Catarina Salazar because that's who I'm looking for. And I'm doing a broad search. I'm not even going to say where they were born. I'm not even going to give a year thing. The less information, the more you're going to pull up. So this is in the search box or the search records menu for Family Search. And this is what I pulled up. There he is. He got married in 1870. And he got married not in Nuevo León, but in San Luis Potosí. So is my research done? No. This is an index. That means somebody looked at a scanned image and filled in some boxes that were required, but there's probably more information on the original record. We want the original record. We want that handwriting. So what are we going to find? This is the index here. This is where, right? And this is an index. I copied that. I don't put that really, I put it in my research log because I looked at it, but that's not the document. This is the information for the document. So since I had a date, I went to Family Search again. And I went to Mexico in San Luis Potosí, civil registration records from, now this is the range, 1859 to 2000. So if I was looking for Ahualulco, I could put in 2000, especially if it was a baptism or a marriage. But I'm looking for Guadalcazar because that's what they told me to look for. That was on that index. Oops. So, oh, sorry. Okay, Guadalcanal. So this is only a portion of what's available. They had 2 more columns with nacimientos, and defunciones are deaths. But this is a recording of the marriages. And here we remember 1870, and there it is. Matrimonios 1870 to 1878. And this is what I found. This is their marriage. And they got married. See, her last name now has a Z. Tello Benito y Salazar Caterina. So always remember that the spelling is fluid, absolutely fluid everywhere, even in the US. And so they were married in Guadalcanal, 6th day of September, 1870. In front of me, this is a judge. And well, I'm going to skip ahead to where I pulled out all the information to, I think it's in my, oh, this is the second page. They get really wordy, really wordy. Oh, there is something on that first page. I'm sorry. The first page here says that they did an act de un presentación. So they came forward with a presentation on the 13th of August last year. And it's marked with number 169. And it's on Fohai's page. It's on page 88. And it's in the front of this same book. So I know if I go back, if I had a book in my lap that I was looking at, because these are all big, thick, heavy books, I could just go back. But in the world of genealogy, it's all digital. Not everything is digitized, but everything in Mexico is that they have in Salt Lake is digitized. So you would look at the film and scroll back until you found that page. And up here, you can hardly see it. I'm sorry, I cut it off. This is page 917. So I would just go back a few pages and see if I can't find that presentation. So that's the kind of stuff you get from reading the entire document. And I've read this several times. I'm looking at a small screen now. But here again, it says, okay, so now it says that the padrino here, okay, so the name of her parents is Ireneo Salazar, and he's married and he's 70 years old, and he lives in Cerro Blanco. So it's very possible if he lives there that the bride, Caterina, was born there. But this also answers another question. His last name is Salazar. And if you go back and remember that we looked at that birth record, and it said that his last name was Sustaita. So I'm thinking his last name is really Salazar. But that's going to be answered by finding her baptism and birth registration. And I probably won't find a civil registration for her birth because she's 18 years old and I'm not good at math. It's iffy that I'll find one because that's about the time they started. She was born about the time they started doing civil registration. So if I'm lucky, I'll find out, but I'll probably find a baptism record. And then I'll be able to really establish what his last name is. I suspect it's Salazar. So unfortunately, this is how genealogy works. You find something and you end up with a lot more work than you thought. And that's the fun of it. It's like a puzzle. Okay, so this is page 2. And so I want to point out that these are the witnesses, and you want to get every bit of this particular document doesn't have a signature like a lot of the Catholic Church records do. And the priest will just do all these flourishes, and sometimes they take half the page of how they make all these flourishes at the end of their last name. And that is actually part of their signature. That's almost like a stamp or a seal. They invent their own. And remember, this is a rough world that they're living in to a certain extent. They don't have seals like they do in Rome. They don't have wax. You see a lot of abbreviations because they may be running low on ink. So this isn't, there's no staples. Let's just put it that way. So their mark or their seal becomes this elaborate design at the end of their statement. This is fascinating to see and look at. All right, now here we go. This is the marriage record. Now this is my research log. I just cut the top off, so I'm hoping you can see it. And now I highlighted this in yellow because I know on the 13th of August, number 169 on page 88 in this book, I'm going to find a presentation. And so I've noted this. And that's what you do with a research log. You put your own notations in. What do you think? And oh my gosh, I've got to check on this guy's last name. Is this right? And so this is your own personal history of your work on a person. So this is an important thing to do. Like, I can't say it enough. Okay, so now we're going to start going through the searches and how you are going to do your searches. We got the table, so you know that's available, and I want to show you where to find these. In FamilySearch.org, there's a research wiki, and that table I was showing you that says if you're looking for ages, you want to look at civil registration, and then you want to look at the next document. That's found in this research wiki, and there's a library catalog as well, and that catalog is part of what you saw when I showed you the document where I put in the search box. Well, actually, I pulled up the registration, civil registration, and it had all the names of the cities in San Luis Potosí, and I circled Guadalcazar. That's all from the library catalog. And then you can get help for languages, how to read these documents. If you're not strong in Spanish, completely understandable. You want to get language help. You want to understand what it is you're reading. And these records are challenging at times. I use a 37-inch monitor because these records are daunting. Census records are important. You're going to find those on FamilySearch, and you're going to find them also in Ancestry. And I look at both. I have a subscription to Ancestry, and I will look at both because the qualities of the documents differ between the two websites. So even though you found the 1850 census record in Connecticut, so you're looking there, you want to go look at the other website and see what the quality of that record is. You want the best one possible. You want to look at border crossings, and Ancestry has quite a lot of them. FamilySearch does as well. And immigration records, naturalization papers, passports, all that it can be found on FamilySearch. And if they don't have it and you're looking for it, they may tell you where to go. Research Wiki is just so important for a country that you don't know much about, or even if you do, you'll find things in there that you just hadn't thought of. So I'm going to head down to the next slide. Okay, so you want to, for this is a research wiki, you want to open the web page, go to the search drop box, and there's going to be a link on the bottom of that menu to the research wiki. And, oops, sorry. Okay, so I think I put in South America, and these are the countries that they have information on for researching. And they have links, and I clicked on, obviously, Peru. Some of these records are not available, because you have to remember there are wars, there are volcanoes, there are tropical storms, and stuff gets wiped out. I had a difficult time in the Philippines researching because so much of their records are lost or they're not recorded. So, okay, so we're gonna look at Peru. And this is the research wiki for Peru. And it's saying, this is just part of it. These are all the divisions or, trying to think of the word, the different areas of Peru. You can look in the Amazonas, Cajamarca, Huánuco, La Libertad. So these are all political divisions in Peru, and you want to select the one that you want to do research in. So I picked La Libertad. And here we go. Oh, no, this is actually all of Peru. And this is only part of the research wiki. So if I wanted to look at colonial records, military records, nobility, notarial records, school records, genealogies that they've compounded. And who knew you could do Japanese research in Peru? I had no idea. I think it's fascinating. There's indigenous peoples in Peru. So these are all, this is like a Russian nesting doll. You click on one and it's going to give you an entirely different set of, another page that gives you a lot more directions and hints and will assist you in getting through. And I'm going to say, this isn't just for Hispanic research. This is worldwide. This is all over. You can do this with Germany. You can do this with Norway. You can do this with China. There's not a whole lot available, but they are working on it. So just know that these resources and this wiki page covers the entire world as much as possible. Okay, and these are the provinces in La Libertad. So it gets you down to a granular level, but we really need to find the town. I actually have a friend from Trujillo, La Libertad, and she goes and does research at home. She will go there. Let's see, next is, I clicked on the languages. I wanted to know what about the languages, and they are mostly written in Spanish, but you don't need to speak or read Spanish to do research in Peruvian records. You need to know some key words and phrases to understand the records. Catholic Church records are the most common. So you're getting some hints, and you can find large populations of German, Italian, Japanese, and other immigrants. So, and then this is going to, the Spanish grammar affects the way the names appear in genealogical records. And now you have a link here to be able to click on that and get some more understanding. So if you come up with a question, this is a great place to keep going back to. Okay, now, and this is just the languages. There's more. All right, spelling. Spelling is not stable. It's not stable here in the US, and it's not stable anywhere. And when I'm talking about Mexico, I'm talking not about San Diego, south of San Diego. I'm talking about here, where I live in Ontario, or the Bay Area. All the places that were part of the of Mexico, Texas, Colorado, all these areas are Mexico. And you will find, if you're going past 1860, you're going to be looking in Mexico research. So this is one last name that I was doing research in, and he was a gentleman from Arizona whose family was from New Mexico. And I like to kind of track how a name is spelled, and these were some of the ones that I could remember. So remember, the two L's are pronounced like a Y, and then if you're running out of ink, NVA will stand in for Nueva, and sometimes it's Via Nueva, and you make it into two words. But it's really common to have it like this. You will see it like this sometimes if that's what they pass down, but most commonly you'll see this last name spelled like this. But it could be like this in 1820, and it could be like this in 1795. You never know. So just know that it is variable. So here's a word list, and I just picked the months, but they have everything in there: the weeks, the dates, how to count. This will help you if you have a limited knowledge of Spanish. And this, and I want to note one thing that I kind of overlooked was that in Spanish, the names of the months are not capitalized. That's a real difference for us. So, and we sometimes want to scan through a document, and we're looking for a capital J for January, but it's going to be a netto and it's going to be a little e. So don't get fooled. Just be aware. Okay, now this is the online collections that I found in the civil registration records for Peru. And these are the years they cover, and you can click on them. And again, this is only part of that list, but here's La Libertad. They go from 1903 to 1998, and they're available at Family Search. And you can click on this. These are all live links on their website, and you can get right over. So this is very valuable. Here's a contact list. So if you want to contact somebody in you're looking for some records, this is the archives of the Supreme Court of the Republic of Peru. And they even have a phone number, so you can write. They don't have an email address, unfortunately, but you can write, and they probably have English-speaking people there. So here are the public archives, and here's their telephone number, and here's their email address. So if you have somebody in Peru, you might get some help from somebody in this office. And I'm going to say you're going to find that for all the other countries that they have these wiki pages for. This kind of information should be there for you. Okay, census records. They're available on Ancestry and Family Search, as I said, but these are the ones that are available. I don't think anybody else did census records. But in Spanish-speaking areas, there are records called padrones, Padrones, and they kind of substitute for a census record. What it was about was about every 5 years. Oh, and I'm going to say in Spain as well. About every 5 years, the parish would go through and make a list of all the names of the people in their parish and who lived in this house. And it has to do about money. It has to do with people wanting to, you have to pay tithing, or limosna as it's called. And so that's what this is about, the padrones. And you can find links to that in Family Search, just on the search their records or go to their wiki research page. So those are good records, but they're not considered censuses. However, we professional genealogists, we use those. All right, and this is a 1930 census record from Mexico. There's a lot of information here. Again, as you do this, you want to be sure you record all that information in your research log. And then you want to download this page and make sure you have that. So here, this first fella, I can't read his first name. Uribe is his last name. It's a man. He's 79. He is, looks like he's single because it says soltero. And honestly, I can't really read this, but it does say he was born in Jalisco. And this person here was born in Nayarit. And this person was also born in Jalisco. And these are all Jalisco people here. And from here down, this is all Jalisco. They were married civilly or in the church. So one for each column. So this is a couple that were married in the church, but they weren't married civilly. And these are couples here that are married both civilly and in the church, and as well as these couples. So it's interesting what you'll find on these limited records. It does have their occupation, and at one point it says, do you, this is your nationality, are you Mexican? And they're all Mexican. Some people aren't. So you find a lot of people in some areas from, I've seen them in Austria and the East, Middle East. So, okay, so that's what a census looks like in Spain, or I'm sorry, in Mexico, and this is in Jalisco. In fact, the name of this town is Outland de Navarro. So, okay. Localities. You have to know where you're looking. You have to know where they are. And you can actually just Google that person. You can go to the catalog and you can look at gazetteers. Oh my gosh, I'm for some reason stumbling on this word. Ecclesiastical guides for inventories and boundaries. And gazetteers are really important because they will also say, well, yeah, in San Francisco County, oh, but it's not, after so many years, it's moved down to San Jose. And so the boundaries change. The cities usually stay there, but there are places in Germany that are in Germany and Austria a couple of years before that, and then you'll find them in Poland. And so boundaries change. They change a lot in the US as well. So gazetteers are important because they do give you that timeline and the link to when the boundaries changed. Here's a gazetteer from Mexico, Antonia Garcia Cubas, and this is available online. So you can actually look it up. You can go to Family Search, or you can go to WorldCat, worldcat.org, and they have a collection of online books, and they will also tell you where that book is. So if I looked this up and I wanted to see a paper copy of this, it would tell me the nearest library location that has it, and I can either request an interlibrary transfer or I can go to that library and look it up. So, but this is a gazetteer, and it's a very famous gazetteer. There's 5 or 6 volumes. And this is a section of that of Garcia Cubas. So this is a town named Moctezuma, and it's telling me that it's part of Venado in the state of San Luis Potosí, and beautiful at inn with a linda al inn con el municipio de. Okay, so it links to the municipality of Venado, and at the east, it's Arista, and at the south, it's next to La Capital, which is probably San Luis Potosí, and then next to that is Ahualulco. So it's just really gives me an idea of where this town sits, talks about the types of congregations. It's an old town. It's got haciendas, and that's probably where I'll find Las Sabanias when I look for that. So, and there's apparently a few towns named Moctezuma. So you just it'll help you with your research if you're researching in Mexico. If you're researching in Spain, there's Mados, and this is available on Google Books. And Google Books has this Diccionario Geográfico Estadístico. This is a geographic statistical dictionary, and it talks about the history of Spain, and it's posesiones de ultramar. Ultramar means over the ocean. So that would be the possessions. And so we're talking about Argentina, Peru, Mexico, anywhere, the Philippines, anywhere the Spanish planted a flag. And then there's the Biblioteca Virtual de Andalucía, which is part of Spain. And you really have to know Spanish with this one. It's a virtual dictionary, so it's all online, and it has to do with the province of Andalusia in Spain. So this is another San Luis Potosí, Cubas Garcia wanted to get in there and snuck in. So this is another gazetteer information. So it'll say, oh yeah, Pascual Mados, the Family Search has digitized all 16 volumes, and you can access them here. And this is a link, so you don't have to go searching everywhere. And oops, sorry. Oh, okay, you don't have to search everywhere for it. But here we go with the Biblioteca, and this is in Spanish. So that's Spain.
Maria,
Yeah.
I just want to give you a time check. It's 5:11 right now, just so you know.
Oh my goodness, I'm past time. I'm hoping people are okay. Okay, I'm almost wrapped up.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Native people. You want to research on the wiki for Native people, and they'll have tribal offices. They'll have genealogists on staff, allotments, Indian census records. They had a special census record for Indians, health records, school records. And then if you're looking for Native people and regarding their property, GLOW records, that's Government Land Office records at blm.gov, keeps tabs of the land allotments given to Native peoples. And that would be for all over. Okay, so the catalogs, card catalog. This is Ancestry's card catalog. This is the dictionary for an atlas. It'll have locations as well. And this is an important library, Huntington Library Early California Population Project. This is Cindy's list where you can find links. Pares is Spain. And the Early California Project has mission records. So if you're looking in the San Francisco area, anywhere in California, anywhere there was a mission, the user guide will help you get through reading one of these documents with the place. Here is an original document, and this is what they've translated it to. This is very helpful. So I would encourage anybody doing that who doesn't have a firm grasp on these records to go there and download this document. These are some books. George Rice Camp is amazing. Okay, and thank you.
Thank you, Maria. We did have quite a few questions during the presentation. I'm just posting the link for the Early California Population Project into chat so that people can have that. But let me get to the questions. And if you have more questions, please type it into the chat and we will ask Maria for you. The first question we had is, is there a handout? Is there a handout? Maybe I could send the attendees via Eventbrite after this.
I didn't make a handout, but I will if you want one. And I can send that to you tomorrow morning.
Okay, that sounds great. I probably won't be able to send it to them until Monday, so you can, but yeah, that'd be great. And for one of our questions we have, she said, I did my ancestry DNA and wondered why some countries not showing in my DNA, those of my parents who are from Cuba and Colombia. I wonder how to track down documents from those countries to piece together their history, since my dad passed away and my mom has dementia. Do
Well,
you have any tips?
Cuba's hard, very hard. So what I would do is try to get a hold of where it was in Cuba that your mother's from, and if she can remember where your father, and if you have any aunts and uncles, go there too. But Cuba's hard because of the embargo that we had for so many years. So you want to find a parish in Cuba that's related to where they were. And honestly, I would call them. Just see if you can't get a phone number. You might be able to find a researcher there. A lot of parishes have people that will come in and help. Cuba's hard because of the embargo, but parish records are your best bet. And hopefully they were in an area that didn't get hit with huge storms, but because that destroyed so many records. So that's your best bet right there. Find out where, get a hold of a parish.
Okay, great. And then we did have a question about the research log. Do you have a template for the research log that you recommend?
I love the one I use. There are tons of them online. I'm happy to put a blank copy in the handout on the backside or something, and they can use that.
Okay, that's great. And another question, can we also find information about relatives that immigrate 50 or 60 years ago?
Absolutely. Yes. Border records, immigration records, Ancestry has them, as well as Family Search, but I go to Ancestry for those.
Okay, and then going back to the research log, I have all the resources in ancestry.com. Should I go back and do a research sheet with resources noted for each individual in my family tree?
I would certainly suggest it. I know it's hard, but if you have a lot of people, but it will also open your eyes as to what you're missing and what you want to, where you want to go.
Okay. And do churches keep their own records and files to share?
Some do and some don't. I know in Jalisco, in Mexico, and some of the neighboring states, there was a volcano that was going, and they grabbed the records and took them to other states, and so they got scattered. So usually they do keep their own, but if it starts kicking up into the dioceses, like if there's a dispensation, the records are found in those diocese records, and that's more advanced than what we went through.
Okay. And on Mexican birth records, if there's a rancho listed, should it be included in your ancestry.com record?
I would put that in there.
Okay. And can you recommend free websites to use for research? And does it depend on the country? For example, communist government like Cuba?
Well, I highly recommend, if I was looking in Cuba today, and I haven't done much research there, I would definitely go to the Family Search Wiki page and put in Cuba to see what they have. Another source would be to go to ICAPGen, ICAPGEN.org. And that's a website with professional genealogists. You might see if there's somebody from Cuba who specializes in Cuba. I don't know of anybody off the top of my head, but you could look there. You could actually even call the Family History Library in Salt Lake City. They are open, not for physical helping or allowing people in, but they are there. They will answer questions on the phone.
Oh, that's great. I didn't know that. And I did have a comment from one of our attendees that they love that most Mexican birth and baptismal records include paternal and maternal grandparents' names.
Oh, yeah, I love that too.
And so that's all the questions I had. Diana, did any other questions pop up in the chat while we were doing that?
I am looking right now. Did we go over if a rancho is listed?
Yeah,
Okay.
I think there was just one. It's a. Is there
The
anywhere
last
to?
one from Rachel.
Yeah, Raquel. Is there anywhere to look up information on orphanages?
Oh, wow. Well, I don't know much about orphanages and I don't know what country she's referring to, but if I was looking for an orphanage, I think they would be run by the nuns. So I would do a research wiki thing into orphanages in that country. And then if I didn't get anything there, I would call a parish or contact somebody from a parish in the nearby area. But the orphanages are quite often, especially if you're talking about 100 years, and so they're often run by churches.
Okay, and does anybody else have any other questions before we wrap up? You could type them into the chat. I'll give you a minute to do that. We're getting a thank you. You're so welcome. And let's see. Well, oh, any Facebook groups that specialize in this topic?
Yes.
That's a great question. Yeah.
There are many Mexican genealogy Facebook groups. A guy named Moises Garces has Mexico, but there's tons of them there. There's tons of them. Family Search has a Facebook group. We have a Facebook group with Shar, and we do cover all the Hispanic areas, not just Mexico. So there's a Facebook group there as well. And that's SHHAR.
And so we had one more question. But Gary, I might need you to clarify. How would you go about finding father when maybe I could unmute you if you want so that you can ask the question, Gary and Bobby. So
Okay.
there you go. You're unmuted.
It actually cut me off. I was starting to rewrite it.
Oh.
How would you find a father? This is in Mexico. When there is only a mother and her parents listed on the birth and baptismal record. This is actually a great grandfather, and I can't find anything before him on his parents. So how would you direct someone to try to find information?
Okay, here's the first step I would do is when you can't go straight down, go wide. Try to find all the siblings. That may give you a father. And then for the person without the father, look at his marriage record and see if there's a father listed there.
Yeah, his father's it actually does say on him that he was adopted by her husband.
Okay, so her husband is not his natural father. So, okay, well that makes it hard. But see if they have any other children together. So look for all her children and see who their father is.
Yeah.
So
I tried that and I can't find any, but
could be that. What year are you looking at?
oh gosh, I have to get into my ancestry.
Oh, that just give me an approximate year.
Okay.
Oh, you said great grandfather?
It's a great grandfather. So I'm gonna say about 1850.
Okay, 1850. Have you? And there's been a DNA test done?
I've done one, yes.
So, and this is your relative.
This is my on the paternal side.
So it's your relative. So look for your DNA matches. This is where DNA really helps. Adoptions. Look at all the siblings that the mother had, all the children she had, and start looking to see if you see any pattern. We do run into that quite often. So that's where I would start.
Okay.
And would Maria, if the attendees had any more questions, would they be able to reach out to you maybe on the handout if you wanted to leave your email address for them? We can include that in the handout that I'll send out next week if they had any other questions. And
Okay, no problem. Yes.
okay, that'd be great. Thank you. So thank you again to Maria Tello for her presentation. And the recording will be made available on the California State Library YouTube channel. And again, along with the handout, we'll send out a link. Please fill out the survey, and the link was already posted in the chat for you. And stay tuned for details about our next event, and other happenings at the library. And you can do that by joining our new monthly e-newsletter. And you can sign up by going to the California State Library website and going to the mailing list section and sign up for Sutro Library updates. We will paste the link for that. And that's it, everybody. Thank you and have a great evening. Here's the link in the chat for the mailing list. And thank you again, Maria.
Thank you. It's a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry I went so long.
No, you didn't. I just wanted to